another, because what I want to do is show you hacking progressive. So here, after you do these early projects, you get yourself set up with apktool and ADB connected to your Android emulator, which if you do it the way I did it, you did it from Kali to your Android emulator, although there are many other ways to do it. You could, for example, install Android Studio on your laptop and connect to a real Android phone with a cable. That would work just fine. There are many ways to do it. But the way I'm doing it is this way. Now, there are several different kinds of phone you can install. I should mention, some people could not install GenieMD, and I found out that to make that work, I had to use Android 5. For some reason, it won't go on Android 8. So I went back and I made a Google Nexus 5 running Android 5. If you make a Google Nexus 5 running Android 4, you can't put Google Play on it, which is annoying. So what I did was I went back to here, and as you see, you can put Android 5 on a Google Nexus 5, and that's fine. These other phones work all right too, the Pixel 3 and the Android 6, but they have Android 8 and Android 9, which is fine for most of the projects, but for one of the projects, you really need an older version of Android. Realistically, you need 2 or 3 different versions of emulators to get very far. Yeah. Oh, good. With GenieMD even? Yeah. Yeah, there was one, the Harvard Health didn't seem to want to go on it. Yeah, I think the Harvard Health you'll find won't go on it, and I had to make a 5. Anyway, it's pretty fast. After you get it working, it's easy to make another one. And anyway, the Windows emulators, I think they're all running Android 5. That seems to be their standard. Anyway, so right now I'm using a Google Nexus 5. And all right, so first thing I'm going to do is uninstall the old app, because what I put on here is a malicious app. So I'm going to go into, I could do it in the Play Store, but I'm kind of used to doing it from settings. So I go into settings, and then I find apps. I think I can do this. I think this didn't work. Yeah, this went somewhere funny. Okay. I'd like to just, okay. It's a little hard to scroll. There's apps. Okay, that's what I wanted. For some reason, there's 2 or 3 different apps things. There's apps. So now I can find Progressive, and I can uninstall Progressive. This is what I want. All right. So I'll get rid of the old one. Now I'm going to put on the new one. So I'll go to Google Play and put on Progressive. That's the one. Okay. This is, of course, the latest version currently in use by the real company. And all right, so I put that on. Now, I'll just mention, in order to get apktool, I have VMware running here, and I'm running Kali in VMware tool. And I've got it set up to use NAT Networking, which is the default. So what's going on here is, if you go in here, let me make this bigger. Shift Control Plus, there we are. All right, so if I do Control C, clear, all right, IP address, all right. So here is the NAT networking on my system, 172.16.123. Now, I happen to know what the adapter is, but if you didn't, you just go out here and you make Shift Control, there, make that big, and do ifconfig, and just look, whoa, that's right, I need a, that's on my Android, on my Kali system. Here I am on my Mac. Now, if I do ifconfig, my Mac has a ton of adapters, but here's the one that's 172.16.123. That is VMNet 8, and I'm used to this. These are the virtual network adapters that go to VMware virtual machines. And I think VMNet 1 is host only, and VMNet 3 is NAT. VMNet 8 is NAT. But the point is, this is the name of the virtual adapter that goes to my Kali machine. And what you do is you install Genymotion and get your phone working, and then you install VirtualBox, because Genymotion is VirtualBox. It is modified some, but to do advanced networking settings in Genymotion, you have to use VirtualBox. So if you open VirtualBox, you'll see your Google Nexus 5 is down here running, and you can adjust the networking. One thing, I get a lot of comments from students is that I have this special IP address, which I think is 192.168.56.101. That is a network address used to control the machine. You can't run network traffic through that one. you have to have a second adapter. And the second adapter by default will be NAT, which sends you off to the internet. But in this case, you have to make it bridged to VMNet-H. Now, my Android emulator can talk to my Kali machine. This only works because I have VMware running Kali. If I had VirtualBox running Kali, there would be no way to do this. So that's important. You have to have two different virtualization products running on the same machine at the same time, which is kind of insane, but that's the mixture that works. So now, I also have to turn on promiscuous mode to allow all, or the DHCP process will not work. So anyway, it's in the project. You have to do this. If you do that in VirtualBox, now this device will have an IP address on the same network as the Kali machine. And you can see it in settings. If I go here into settings, it's pretty hard to find your way around in here, but I eventually found About Phone. And down here at the very bottom, there was an IP address somewhere, but maybe I'm not going to find it now. You remember where it is? Where is it? Status? There, yeah, there it is. 172.16.123.252. So you can find it that way. By the way, I got so tired of doing this, there's another way. I don't think I have it in the project, but this is the way you do it. When you're a hacker and you're hacking into devices, I opened an SSH shell into my Kali to make it easier. You just use NetDiscover. You could this is a cool hacking tool. NetDiscover -R, and then you use this address. /24. This will show you all the devices on your network. I wonder if I can use my finger. Guess not. But see, there you are. It found it. This is an easy way to do it. These are VMware. This is not. That's the Android phone, 252. So that's the cool way to find things, by the way. That is an ARP scan. It only works inside Kali. Anyway, so now that I've done that, I can now connect to my phone. So I can use ADB connect to that address. And now it's connected. And if I want to do, I can do ADB devices -L. It'll show me my device. My device is a VirtualBox Google Nexus 5. So now I can control my phone from Kali. Now, I just installed the Progressive app. So there it is in all its glory. Now, I don't intend to use it. I intend to modify it. So let me open up the project and I just copy some commands from here. This is, the project here is Trojaning the Progressive app. This is the one we're doing. So install Progressive from the store. And now I want to pull the APK. So this is the command ADB shell PM list packages will show me all the apps installed on my phone. ADB is the command. ADB shell lets me execute command lines, and PM is package manager. And the package manager can do various things. And in this case, it's going to list packages. So here's everything on my phone. So I don't want everything. I want progressive. So I put pipe grep prog. That'll give me things that have prog in them. And there it is. You have to do this because every package has its own name. And the names are often funny. Like I would have guessed Phone Valley. Com.progressive, I might have guessed. But they always have funny names. And this is the official name of the package. Now, you have to find out where the package is. Every app on your phone, the entire installer is saved there. Then it's unzipped and run. You have 2 copies of every app on your phone, which is a kind of funny thing to do, considering that phone storage is at a premium, but they didn't ask me. So that's what they do. So we can totally get the original installer off the phone. And so now that I found the name of the package, I put here, find the path to that package at PM. You will have to use the correct path on your phone. It will probably not be equal to what was on my phone. So back when I did it like years ago, this was some long mess with like a base 64, a bunch of drivel in the name. But now Progressive has changed their packaging so it has a simpler name. But whatever the name is here, you must use exactly that name. Let me make a folder, demo, and go in there so I don't mix up my old one. Okay, now I've got an empty folder. Now I'm going to ADB pull that off the phone. So now it pulls it. Apps are not very big. They're like 20 or 30 megs. It'll come pretty fast. So now I have pulled the app off the phone, which whatever this app is 54 megs. So if I do ls-l, that is the Progressive app, one file. It's an APK file. To unpack an APK file, you use apktool D. And I found it to be useful to do -F, -R, which forces it to ignore certain problems and causes it to leave certain resources unpacked. This works out best in practice. Otherwise, I found a lot of complicated apps had trouble unpacking and repacking. These are the switches that I find have best results. So that unpacks the thing, and what this does, it unzips it, then it converts the Android ASCII into real ASCII you can read. They use some goofed up ASCII that isn't right. And then it takes apart the code into Smalley. So you can see the Smalley source code of your app. So now if I do ls-l, it created a folder called base. And if I look in there I've got the Android manifest, and then I got a folder called Smalley and some other Smalley folders, and those are all full of source code. Now I could look at it, and I did look at it. I just put it here. This is the kind of thing you'll see. You got base, you got assets, you got Android, you got libraries. Here's Google, Draska, PayPal, Phone Valley. Many, many libraries have been thrown together, plus some code that Progressive wrote themselves. It's really a big mess. But since they didn't bother to obfuscate anything, I don't need to do any of that. I can just look for the word login and password. So this is grep. This is my favorite way of doing this. I've been doing this for a long time. I just do grep. This is case insensitive and recursive. So it's going to look for the word login in the current directory and all the underneath directories, traversing from here all the way down. Then every line it finds with login, it's going to look to see if there's password in there also. So it finds some modules with login and password in them, and the results are so long it's kind of hard to see. So I thought it was more fun to cut it down to a shorter thing with less, -S. That will make it wrap around differently. So I just get one line for each answer, and there we are. So now you can see there are several files, but there's really only a few. There's something called login binding impl, something called change password, a login view model, and login request. Those are the files that use both the word login and the word password together. So that's not very many files to go into, and it turns out that the goods are in login view model. So all I have to do is modify this file, and I can just copy the file name here, hit Q to get out of less, and then I can edit it with nano. So now I can see that file. This is the Smalley source code for the Progressive app. And you see it's got create account, login expired, link expired. Here's login with a message called login, and so on. This is clearly the code that does the login. And I found that the way to find the good thing is to use this login online account and search for that string. Of course, I looked for password and grep through it and hunted for a while, but this was my result, the coolest way to find it. So I look for that with Control W to look for it. I paste in that thing and then enter, and it finds it. And then I find the same thing again a second time. And now I have found that method. This is a method private login online account that takes in some variables, some Boolean variables. This is the way Smalley code looks. It's a little more confusing than Java, but not very much. So this has got 5 local variables, and down here it does things with those variables. So I'm going to steal the password. Since I'm going to need a new variable, I'm going to steal the password and put it in the log. So I'm going to change the number of local variables from 5 to 6. I've now reserved a new variable called v5 that I can use without breaking the app, because the original developer did not use v5 in this module. And now all I have to do is figure out where to put it. So it turns out that the cool place to put it is down here where that green box is. After you see password text subject and check cast. This is what takes the password and puts it in a register called v3 and then checks that it's a string. That is in fact the password, and so I'm going to log v2 and v3. v2 is the username and v3 is the password. This stuff is actually pretty easy to read. So all I have to do is go down a little bit to find that area. It's not very far away. Here's the username going in v2 and moving into move result object into v2, which is just one of the registers. And here's the password going in v3. So right there, all I have to do is put v2 and v3 in the log, and I've stolen the username and the password. And this is the Trojan code that does that. I just learned this much Smalley there, and you don't even need to indent it properly or anything. I always put in these Trojan marks because when I'm developing these things, I have to put it all over the place and guess, and I'll be able to find it. And if you make any mistakes, you break the app. like if I put it in a V that's already used, or if I make a typo. So I've learned I can only put in 3 of these, recompile the app and test it. If I put in more, I'll make a mistake and not be able to find it. So anyway, this is now going to put in the log Trojan stealing progressive credentials, and then it's going to put in V2 and V3. So I've now added some extra code to the app. I'm going to save it with Control X, Y, Enter. Now I just have to rebuild the app. apktool D took the app apart. apkb will put it back together. So that reverses the decompiling process and builds it back together. It's not compiling from Java, it's just building from small e source code, which is bytecode. So it has a very simple job to put it back together. However, you cannot put an app on the phone that is not signed. It will refuse to install. It must be signed for your security. So in order to sign it, I have to have a signature, and I can just generate it with this thing called key tool. This will just generate a key tool the usual way, 2048 bits, so it's a little more secure if you want to use that word. Anyway, so I now create a signature. It asks me for a password, so I'll use PASSWORD, because this is all snake oil. I mean, okay, now it's going to ask me a lot of questions. I could put in Progressive Insurance and their real address and all that crap, but they don't check, so why should I bother? I'll just leave it full of garbage. And now I have to say, yes, I agree. Unknown is the answer to everything, sure, because nobody seems to care. Now I've generated a code signing signature, and now I sign it with this thing called jar signer. So that does jar signer. It needs my high security passphrase, which is password. And now it's going to sign it. So my all the various parts of my app are now signed with my code signing signature. So now I've made a signed app. Now, if I try to put that app on the phone, I'm going to have a problem. If I can put it on with ADB push, ADB install. So here, by the way, it puts it in a folder called dist for distribution. So I could try to install it now. And if I do, it's going to push onto the phone and then try to install, and it's going to fail because it already exists. Because remember what I said, right now it has the real Progressive app with the real Progressive signature. You can't update to a different signature. It will catch you for that. That is the only thing this signature thing does for you, but it does that. So in order to put on my Trojan app, I have to manually take off the old one. So I go into settings, which is here, and then I find apps, which is down here someplace. Settings, wait, I saw it. It's a little hard to scroll. I should eventually be able to get to apps. Here, apps. There was, okay, apps. And so there's Progressive uninstall. Okay, uninstall finished. Now it should let me put on the new app. Pushes it onto the phone the same way it pulled it off. It installs it, and it does not give a failure message. In fact, it appears there. So now I have a Progressive app. So now all I want to do is monitor the log, ADB logcat. Will show me everything on the phone. There's lots of things scrolling by. In order to make it a little less messy, I can grep for the word Trojan. Remember, I put Trojan in my message just for this reason. So anything I put in the log has the word Trojan in it. There. So now I will not have just all kinds of junk scrolling by. So now I go here and run the Progressive app, which is here. Progressive, there we are. And so this is CCSF user, all spelled wrong. This is super password. I log in and there it is, stealing my username and password. So this is what I did. I sent it to Progressive. I said, you guys should do something about it. They completely ignored me and now they're homework. Anyway, so you should not be able to do this. This is stupid. It's easily avoidable. Bank of America finally caught up to the NFL that did it 8 years ago. There are many ways. It should have detected a jailbroken device and refused to run. It should have detected that the app had been modified and refused to run. It should have obfuscated the variables so I could not find anything named username or password. There are many, many defenses out there that they could have used, and you would think they would have the money for it, but they just don't bother. Anyway, so That's the joy of the Progressive app, so check it out. The Bank of America project I took down because Bank of America finally rised up, so we'll pick on somebody else. There's like 8 other banks that made the same mistake, so we'll switch to Chase, Wells Fargo, Schwab. We'll find one of the others. Wells Fargo said they were going to fix it 3 years ago. Maybe I'll see if they did. Anyway,
Can you see if Chase fixed it? I just want to know.
I might. I know. I tested it like 5 years ago and turned them in. Then I tried it like a year or two later, and they hadn't. Yeah, I'll try some. I'll let you know. I'll put something up. By the way, another thing I should mention. By the way, you folks should be auditing apps. I put that up. You can totally go here, and here's the project's audit an app, iOS or Android. Audit an app, and you can just audit one and prove that it's secure, and that'll do. But if you audit 10 or 20, you'll pretty soon find one that's not secure, and then you can report a vulnerability and everything and achieve eternal glory and make people mad at you and everything, which is fun for some of us twisted people, the kind of people who would carry on a picket sign and complain about something. I send app vuln reports, which is pretty much the same thing, and leads to the same result of everybody just hating you. But it's a hobby. So anyway, you can do this stuff and get extra credit. I recommend test whatever apps you use on your phone. You'll probably find that something you use is horrible. And that might be an interesting thing to know. Anyway, are there any questions about anything? All right, let's see if there's any chat messages coming in. Looks like there aren't. All right, I guess I'm going to stop this. I'll go open up Science 214 if anybody wants to work here. You can use that. We got some Macs in there. I'm probably going to move some Macs down to the other lab in a few weeks, but I haven't got the iPhones yet either. Right now we're all doing Android, so you can use any computer for that. But you're going to have to get a local Android emulator running on your machine, and that will be kind of a chore, as many students are discovering. These emulators are a little hard to set up. And so I'll help you as much as I can. The easiest way to do it is to have a Mac. Macs, you can actually use my instructions and they will work. If you have PC or Linux, there are going to be problems, but it's worth getting over them. Anyway, all right, that's it for this lecture. And I'll go to the lab and help people that want to work here.